On September 21st, two heavyweights Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois will clash in a fight that could reshape the division, and here we have collected some best pros reactions for you. Teddy Atlas, one of the most renowned boxing coaches and commentators, acknowledged the significant progress Dubois has, but also pointed out an area that still needs improvement. He highlighted how Dubois redeemed himself in that fight, proving to himself that he had what it took to succeed at the highest level.
There's one thing that he does have to improve on, and that is his defense. You know, he willed himself to knock out Herjavec. He walked through those punches. He showed that he had become that pro I talk about, that he redeemed himself as a man, that he can live with himself now. That fight was about him living with himself, that last fight against Herjavec and against Miller. But he went and he walked through those punches for 2, 3, 4, 5, and broke him down, instilled his will, instilled his physicality on him, and took all kinds of punishment.
Teddy Atlas also praised Joshua and mentioned the challenges Daniel Dubois would face against Anthony Joshua, noting that while Dubois managed to power through his last fights, the same approach wouldn't work this time. Atlas suggested that Dubois cannot expect to take the same level of punishment and come out on top as he did before.
He cannot do the same thing against Joshua. Joshua punches too accurate and too hard with the right hand. Joshua's in a good place now, mentally, and of course technically with Ben Davidson. And if he is gonna expect to take the same punishment and walk through it, to what I'm talking about right now, and walk through it those first few rounds, it ain't happening.
The last fight of Dubois has reshaped a lot of perspectives for him. Tundai, a well-known boxing trainer and commentator, initially believed that Daniel Dubois had the potential to defeat Anthony Joshua after Dubois' last victory. However, his confidence in that prediction was short-lived, lasting only 2 weeks. Despite this, A still admired the energy and determination that Dubois was bringing into the upcoming fight.
You know what, when Daniel won the last fight, I said Daniel's gonna stop aging. But that feeling only lasted for 2 weeks. That feeling, because I like the energy.
Tunda A further commented on the positive energy and high confidence that Daniel Dubois was displaying as he prepared for the fight. However, despite his admiration for Dubois' mindset, A ultimately leaned towards Anthony Joshua, suggesting that if he had to choose, he would back Joshua to win by stoppage.
It's a good energy. I think his confidence is sky high, as is Daniel Dubois. But as of now, I'm going with Anthony Joshua.
Moving forward, Gareth Davies, who is a respected boxing journalist and commentator, shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. He emphasized the importance of Joshua approaching the fight strategically, recognizing the danger that duo poses, especially considering his recent performances. Davies suggested that Joshua needs to avoid getting caught by Dubois and aim to finish the fight within first half. He said, "Joshua's got to go in there for me and have a clever shootout with Daniel Dubois, who's very, very dangerous. He's looked good in his last few fights, especially the last one against Gerald Miller and then Filip Hrgovic, and in many ways Joshua just has to avoid getting caught by him and finish him in the first half of the fight." Gareth Davies reflected on the unpredictable nature of heavyweight boxing, where a single punch can turn the tide of a fight. He noted that this unpredictability is something that has been a recurring theme in Anthony Joshua's recent bouts, particularly since his shocking loss to Andy Ruiz in New York.
Heavyweight boxing and one punch can change everything. I feel like we say this about Joshua every single time he fights. And it goes back almost 4 or 5 years since he lost to Andy.
Davies then shifted focus to Joshua's current state, expressing his approval of the team Joshua has surrounded himself with, especially Ben Davidson. He emphasized that Joshua appears to be in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, which is crucial as he prepares for this important fight. He added, "He has got to get it right. I like who he's with now. I think mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, even he's with the right person in Ben Davidson, who brought Tyson Fury back from the brink a few years ago." Gareth Davies continued by addressing the high expectations that have always surrounded Anthony Joshua. He pointed out that as an Olympic heavyweight champion and a world champion within just 16 or 17 fights, Joshua has always carried a significant weight of expectation. He added, "The problem with Joshua, I think we always expect so much from him. Olympic heavyweight champion, world champion, within 17 fights. And there's just something about him." He had that period where it looked like he doubted what he had in the ring. Davies emphasized that Joshua is now back and must be cautious not to any mistakes, especially with the pressure of fighting at Wembley in front of 100,000 people. He stressed that there is no room for error in such a high-stakes environment. He continued, "He's back and he's just got to not make a mistake. It's a duel at Wembley in front of 100,000 people. He can't afford to make one. With a record of 28-3 and 25 KOs, Joshua is on a mission to reclaim his place at the top and become a 3-time world champion. Standing in his way is the IBF World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Dubois, who holds a 2-1-2 record with 20 KOs, where both of the fighters carry a very strong record. Addie Oladipo still gave this fight a 75-25 split. He reflected on how public opinion has shifted regarding Anthony Joshua's chances in the upcoming fight. He noted that, while most people still back AJ to win, the confidence gap has narrowed significantly.
If you were to ask 100 people, the majority still will be AJ, but I think it's a 75-25 split. Whereas, again, you asked this 4 or 5 months ago, I think it's fucking nearly a shutout to AJ. So look, a lot of people expect AJ.
Addie Oladipo continued by emphasizing that those who are deeply involved in the boxing world recognize the danger that Daniel Dubois presents. He acknowledged that Dubois is seen as a genuine threat in the upcoming fight, suggesting that this bout may be more competitive than some initially thought. He added, "I think the boxing people know that Dubois will provide a real threat." Addie Oladipo discussed the challenges Anthony Joshua might face against Daniel Dubois, noting that while Joshua is likely better in most aspects, the margin isn't as wide as some might think. He pointed out that Joshua needs to create angles to effectively land his hooks and uppercuts, acknowledging that Dubois could still pose a serious threat. Oladipo suggested that Dubois might have an edge in foot speed and power.
So AJ's got to be able to really create some angles here so he can throw those hooks and uppercuts. I think AJ is probably better than Dubois in every department. But that's not me shutting down or shitting on Dubois. Like if AJ's right hand I think's a 9, then Dubois is an 8.5. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very close. Dubois might have the better foot speed, you know. He might be, and look, I mean, Lawrence Okoli said a couple of weeks ago that he thinks Dubois hits harder. So, you know, maybe I've read that wrong.
As the fight is coming, things are getting heated up among these two fighters as well. Two heavyweights, Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, got into a brawl at their face-off, where Joshua impulsively threatened to smash a chair at Dubois.
If you want to go now, let's go.
Relax.
If you want to go now, let's go.
Chair across your face. Don't disrespect.
No, you can't intimidate.
Things escalated, and they tried taking over each other. However, Frank Warren and Addie Hearn, along with Oladipo, made the setting light and struggled to keep them apart.
No, don't disrespect me on my life. No, man, it's okay. Warn this little boy. It's good. Take disrespect lightly, Dan. It's good. Dan, don't take disrespect lightly, you know. Don't sit on the table telling me we can go now and do all of this and that.
Addie Hearn discussed the brawl, noting how Dubois has become more vocal in recent times. Hearn suggested that while Dubois might have initially been encouraged by others to speak up, he now seems to have embraced this more outspoken approach on his own. He said, "I think that he's like people have got into him to be more vocal, and I think now he's actually, I don't think Frank was saying to him at the face-off, say this, I just think it's become more natural for him now." Addie Hearn continued by describing the tense moment.
At the end of the face-to-face where someone said, September 21st, guys, and not before, and Daniel said, well, if you want to go now, I'll go now as well. And AJ said, do you want me to smash this chair across your face? Don't ever disrespect me like that again, and went for it. And then
Addie Hearn expressed his satisfaction with Daniel Dubois being elevated to world champion, as it adds significance to Anthony Joshua's potential victory. He acknowledged Dubois' accomplishments, particularly his wins against Gerald Miller and Filip Hrgović, and recognized that this upcoming bout is a dangerous challenge for both fighters. He added, "I'm so pleased that Dubois has been elevated to world champion, because we can dethrone a world champion, and that'll be all of AJ's world championship victories. Beating a champion, which is really important. Daniel's done really well, a good win against Miller, and a really good win against Hrgović, and he deserves a big fight. It's a dangerous fight for both men." Addie Hearn expressed his strong belief that Anthony Joshua will not only win his upcoming fight, but also go on to become the undisputed heavyweight champion. Hearn shared his vision of Joshua facing the winner of the Usyk versus. He stressed that Joshua deserves this opportunity and is confident that he will achieve it.
I truly believe AJ is going to win this fight and become undisputed. He will fight the winner of Usyk against Fury. That's not His Excellency's plan. That's my manifestation. And I truly believe in that. I see it. He deserved.
Joshua has rebuilt himself after his last loss to Usyk in August 2022, securing 4 consecutive wins and making strategic changes like teaming up with a new trainer, Ben Davidson. This fight isn't just about defending his title for him, it's about proving that he deserves the title of world champion. After a controversial loss to Alexander Usyk, Ben Davidson, the highly regarded coach of Anthony Joshua, shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight with Daniel Dubois. Known for his strategic insight, Davidson suggested that the fight might end earlier than expected, with Joshua potentially knocking out Dubois in the early rounds. He said, "I wouldn't be shocked if AJ knocked him out quite early. I wouldn't be shocked. And that's no disrespect to Daniel. I think he's a good fighter." Davidson Then went on to explain that beyond just weaknesses, even Dubois's strengths might work in Joshua's favor. He emphasized that the matchup itself, rather than timing, could pose a significant challenge for Dubois, making it an unfavorable fight for him.
Being honest, I think his weaknesses play into Anthony Joshua's hands, but more importantly, I actually think his strengths play into AJ's hands as well. So I just think it's a not a good style matchup. So people going on about, is it the right time, forget the time. I just think it's not a good style.
Adam Morley, a prominent boxing manager, shared his perspective on Daniel Dubois's potential in the upcoming fight. He acknowledged Dubois as a clear world-level heavyweight and noted that it's difficult to bet against him. Morley expressed his admiration for Dubois's progress under the guidance of Coach Don Charles and praised his management team for their work in developing Dubois. Having seen Dubois spar with many of his own fighters, Morelli leaned towards supporting Dubois in the fight. He said, "I do think he's a clear world-level heavyweight, and it's hard to bet against him. I do like what Daniel Dubois has done. I do like how he is under Don Charles. The first think he's a terrific coach in his management. I think they've done an incredible job with Daniel." Morrell then added his personal insights, dating, "I've watched him spar a lot of my guys. I side towards Daniel in this fight." Adam Morley continued by emphasizing Dubois's growth since his previous fights, particularly his bout with Joe Joyce. He highlighted how Dubois has gained valuable experience and developed a resilience that he didn't have before. Morley suggested that this newfound stickability could be a decisive factor in the upcoming fight.
And what he's got now that I think he didn't have when he fought Joe, and I think he learned a lot from fighting Joe. I think he's got that stickability in him now that he didn't have before. And I think that might...
Adam Morley discussed the advantages that Anthony Joshua might have over Daniel Dubois, particularly in terms of experience. He pointed out that in Dubois's fight against Hrgović was early on, and Dubois might have lost confidence in similar situations in the past. However, Morley acknowledged that Dubois showed something different in that fight, a resilience that kept him in the game, even when things got tough.
What AJ's got on Daniel is that experience. When you look at the Dubois-Hrgović fight, I think Hrgović was pretty dominant early on, and I think the old Dubois may have kind of folded on that, lost confidence, and then as his confidence drained,
Morley continued by emphasizing that this newfound resilience in Dubois is crucial for his chances against Joshua. He noted that Dubois would need to stay strong and persistent, particularly in the later rounds, and suggested that Dubois's youth could give him an edge as the fight progresses.
What you saw in that fight was, as I said before, a different sort of Daniel, who has something extra about him that can stick in when it gets hard, and I think that's what he's got to do against Anthony. And in order to win the fight, he's got to be around and alive and strong from round like 9-10 onwards. And I think his superior youth may play as...
Anthony Joshua has seen so much in his career, while Dubois has been criticized for not having seen much in the ring. Comparatively talking about it, Frank Smith, a prominent figure in the boxing world, spoke about Anthony Joshua's mindset heading into the fight, praising Joshua for his calm and composed demeanor. He highlighted Joshua's extensive experience on the big stage, noting that nothing about this fight would faze him. Smith emphasized that Joshua knows exactly what he needs to do and is fully prepared for the challenge ahead. He said he's great, he's very chilled, very calm, he knows what he needs to do, and he's been on this stage. I think when you look at AJ's career, what he's done throughout his career, he's been there, he's done it. This isn't going to faze him in any way, and he's ready. Smith then shifted focus to Daniel Dubois, pointing out the immense pressure Dubois will be under as he steps into the ring. He acknowledged Dubois' experience against Alexander Usyk, but suggested that this fight, with its intense atmosphere and high stakes, is on a whole different level. The pressure of the audience and the grandeur of fight week could weigh heavily on Dubois. He continued, "I think Dubois has got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, because he's going to walk out there in front of that audience and think, oh my God, don't get me wrong, he had the UFC fight, but this is just another level in terms of the fight week, everything around it as well." Finally, Smith expressed his confidence in Joshua's ability to finish the fight early, believing that Dubois, despite his recent victory over Filip Hrgović, is not prepared for the power and skill that Joshua brings to the ring. He added, "I think AJ is so calm, composed, and in the form of his life as well." Daniel Dubois had a great win against Filip Hrgović, but he's not been in with Anthony Joshua, and I think Anthony Joshua is going to knock Daniel Dubois out early. George Groves, a former world champion, commented on Anthony Joshua's current form, acknowledging that Joshua has been performing well. However, Groves pointed out that Joshua has mostly faced opponents he was expected to beat. In contrast, Groves noted that Daniel Dubois managed to overcome the odds and secure a victory.
Is in great form, but you look at like who he's beat, you'd always have picked him to have won, whereas Dubois against Hrgović.
Groves continued by highlighting Dubois' resilience in that fight, noting how Dubois got with the early challenges, and then took control as the fight progressed. This ability to bear and come out stronger has boosted Dubois' confidence, which Groves believes will carry into his upcoming bout against Joshua.
Hrgović probably should have beaten Dubois, but Dubois was too good for him. He weathered the storm. He took, a lot of slack and flack in those early stages, but he came on strong and he got the win. And from there, he just seems to have gone from strength to strength. So he'll be confident, I'm sure, going into the...
George Groves acknowledged that while Anthony Joshua is the favorite in the upcoming fight, the outcome isn't guaranteed. He emphasized that many factors could influence the fight, and the real dynamics might only become apparent when both fighters make their ring walk. Groves pointed out that such elements can be unpredictable, adding an extra layer of intrigue to the bout. He said, "I do think Joshua is the favorite, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. There are a lot of things at play to work out, and sometimes it might not be until even when a man does that ring walk that you think, well, it's Wembley Stadium." Groves then highlighted the significance of the venue and the different experiences of the two fighters. He noted that while Joshua has fought on the biggest stages before, Dubois has never faced an event of this magnitude. This difference could either push Dubois to thrive under pressure or conversely cause him to falter. He added, "Joshua's fought on the biggest stages before, but Dubois has never quite done something like this before. He might thrive in that situation, or it might get to him a bit." Whereas Daniel Duo made his intentions clear, expressing his determination to dethrone Anthony Joshua. He emphasized that his mission was to fight and beat the best, recognizing Joshua as the reigning king of the division. Dubois conveyed his confidence in his improvements as both a fighter and an athlete. Dubois said, "I'm just aiming to be the best, to fight the best, and beat the best. AJ has been the king for a long time, and we all know it, so on the night I need to become a king slayer. That's my goal, and that's the mission at hand. I've improved all around as a fighter and an athlete. I'm really up for this and ready to go." Don Charles, the trainer for Daniel Dubois, also spoke with determination about the strategy they plan to employ in the upcoming fight. He emphasized that they are fully prepared to adapt to whatever the fight demands, whether it involves standing their ground or taking a more aggressive approach. Charles made it clear that they would carefully choose their moments in the ring, demonstrating both tactical flexibility and resolve. He explained, "It's a fight by any means necessary. We will bulk, and we will fight. We will choose when to bulk. We will choose when to fight." Don Charles, the experienced trainer of Daniel Dubois, emphasized the import of learning from past mistakes and making necessary adjustments for the upcoming fight. He acknowledged that, while they were victorious and in their previous bout, there are still areas that need improvement.
We'd be stupid not to listen, which is what we have to make sure to rectify the mistakes we made in the previous fight. Although we came out victorious, we need to rectify what we believe we need to rectify. No, we can't take that sort of approach. The initial first three rounds, it's not advisable, and like I said, we've been working heavily to make sure we shore up our ends. But the opposition's got some defending to do. I can tell you that for nothing.
Spencer Oliver, a well-known boxing analyst, expressed his belief that Daniel Dubois is currently at the peak of his abilities, highlighting how his recent victories over Gerald Miller and Filip Hrgović have restored Dubois' confidence. Oliver pointed out that Dubois' loss to Alexander Usyk was a pivotal moment, helping Dubois to truly believe in himself and solidify his place among the elite. He also credited Don Charles for playing a crucial role in Dubois' development, not just physically but also mentally, strengthening Dubois' mindset.
You've got to see Daniel Dubois winning it because he's at the top of his game right now. The Gerald Miller and Filip Hrgović last time out has reinstalled that confidence. I think the loss to Alexander Usyk was the moulding of him. That was the one that he actually believed himself and thought, hold on a minute, I do belong here. That's where I'm at.
Oliver further stressed Dubois' explosive nature, youth, and continuous improvement, suggesting that Dubois won't hold back and will take his chances early in the fight. He noted that Dubois' power makes him a dangerous opponent in the heavyweight division.
Don Charles has been a great part of his journey as well. Don's not been working on the physicalities, he's been working on the psychological side with Daniel, but he can win because he's explosive, he's young, he's improving, and guess what? He'll roll the dice early and he'll go straight for it. That is a fact. No holding back, and when you're a heavyweight, you can whack.
Spencer Oliver continued by acknowledging that Anthony Joshua is the favorite going into the fight, largely due to his skill level and current form. However, Oliver made it clear that while he leans towards Joshua for the win, he isn't dismissing Dubois' chances entirely. He added, AJ starts as the favorite for me because of where he's at and how good he is, so I've got to go with Anthony Joshua, but I'm not writing Dubois off. Anthony Joshua, maintaining his focus, talked about the nature of the fight that is coming forward and the challenges ahead. He compared the boxing world to a wild environment, where only the strongest survived. Joshua responded, "I'm not silly either. I know the game. We're all in the wild. We're a pack of lions and hunters. It's the next man up. I've had Dubois on my mind for a while. The goal is just to get through a successful training camp and then perform on the night as the fight approaches the stakes." Couldn't be higher for these two warriors. September 21st promises a night of high drama. Do you think Dubois will manage to dethrone a three-weight champion for the first time? Share your ISEISU. And don't forget to like the video and hit the subscribe button so we can go on a boxing journey together.